7:20. Donald Trump says he's halting funding to the World Health Organization as he believes that the organization has failed in its basic duty, his words not mine, to respond to the global coronavirus pandemic. I wonder if he's looked in the mirror recently. One man who has is LBC's Washington correspondent Simon Marks. Simon.
Well, Ian, it is unavoidably true that Donald Trump is accusing the World Health Organization of many of the failings that he himself is accused of by his critics here in the United States. But he announced his decision at last night's White House briefing. It amounts to an immediate halt for U.S. funding for the World Health Organization, while some kind of review is done by the Trump administration into not just the WHO's performance during this coronavirus crisis, but also into the long-term outlook for American funding of the organization.
As the organization's leading sponsor, the United States has a duty to insist on full accountability. One of the most dangerous and costly decisions from the WHO was its disastrous decision to oppose travel restrictions from China and other nations. They were very much opposed to what we did. Fortunately, I was not convinced and suspended travel from China, saving untold numbers of lives. Thousands and thousands of people would have died.
Donald Trump very much insisting that his response to coronavirus was more effective than that of the World Health Organization, which he accuses of mismanagement and cover-ups. He has previously said that the World Health Organization covered up the existence of coronavirus for months, although up until now, the White House has not been able to provide any substantiation of that claim. Global reaction to Donald Trump's decision was vigorously critical, and some of it came from people who are usually his ideological soulmates, like the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
While I have many criticisms of the WHO, and most significantly the unfathomable decision that they've had about wet markets, to be sanctioning that is just completely mystifying to me. But that said, the WHO also as an organisation does a lot of important work, including here in our own region in the Pacific, and we work closely with them.
Here in the United States, critics have included the president of the American Medical Association, Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, who of course heads up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He has been a relatively lone voice on the stage here for many, many months, warning of the threats of a global pandemic. He said that the idea of defunding the World Health Organization at this particular moment in history is about as dangerous as it sounds. Where is all this heading? Is Donald Trump simply floating a trial balloon here? Is he trying to find someone to blame other about as warning of the Microsoft, who of course heads up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? He has been a relatively lone voice on the stage here for many, many months, warning of the threats of a global pandemic. He said that the idea of defunding the World Health Organization at this particular moment in history is about as dangerous as it sounds. Where is all this heading? Is Donald Trump simply floating a trial balloon here? Is he trying to find someone to blame other than himself for the size of the coronavirus catastrophe here? Well, take a listen to Dr. Robert Redfield. He is a close associate of President Trump's politically. He's also the head of the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. He does not necessarily sound today like a man who thinks that America's relationship with the Geneva-based organization is about to come to an end.
CDC and WHO has had a long history of working together in multiple outbreaks throughout the world, as we continue to do in this one. We've had a very productive public health relationship. We continue to have that.
So, perhaps at the end of this review period, whenever that comes along, the United States may continue funding the World Health Organization, or perhaps simply do what Donald Trump first proposed to do all the way back in February the 11th of this year. He proposed a 53% cut in America's budget for the WHO, and at the time, that had nothing to do with coronavirus at all. It was more to do with his general antipathy towards multilateral organizations. organisations. Other news today, Governor Andrew Cuomo up in New York continues to say that he thinks that the state has turned a corner in terms of the number of coronavirus new infections and the demand for intensive care beds, but he is still urging caution as New York and states from the east to the west coast start thinking about how they are going to relax their lockdowns.
When you relax that social distancing, you could very well see an increase in the infection rate. So it's all a calibration to the public health. It's over when we have a vaccine. It's over when people know I'm 100% safe and I don't have to worry about this. When does that happen? When we have a vaccine.
General assumption here, Ian, is that it's going to fall to Governor Cuomo and his fellow governors across the country, not Donald Trump, to decide when the country starts returning to normal.
Simon, thank you. That's Simon Marks, our Washington correspondent.